Well, it's interesting. Most people don't know that the Earth wasn't dated using Earth rocks. It was actually dated using meteorites primarily. It was back in 1956 at Caltech that a geologist who was interested in meteorites was looking at the lead isotope composition of the meteorites, and he assumed that the Earth and the meteorites had the same origin. They assumed that the Big Bang and then the sun formed, and then matter was flung out as the sun condensed to form, and that formed the Earth and the planets, and bits left over were the asteroids, and they've broken off and provided meteorites that hit the Earth. So the assumption was that they had a common origin, a common evolutionary origin, therefore they would have the same original age. And so he derived it by looking at meteorites, and to test it, he took a sample of sediment from the ocean floor to look at its lead composition, and it plotted in the same region, and he assumed that was because the leaders get circulated with time with the rocks eroding and forming those sediments on the ocean floor. And so that's how the Earth's age was derived. We've not found a rock or mineral crystal as old as 4.5 billion years, although there's some that have been found close to it in northern Canada and in Western Australia. The whole point is that the method that's involved in using for these has inbuilt assumptions about the way these radioactive clock works. And one of those assumptions is regarding the starting conditions. And they make assumptions about the starting conditions, and that governs everything else that follows. They make assumptions that the rate of decay has always been constant at the rate we measure today, but we weren't back there in the past to see that was always the case. And they make assumptions about no contamination, no mixing from other sources. Well, it's obvious in the Earth that rocks melt and to produce a magma, and that erupts on the Earth's surface or cools under the Earth's surface to create a new rock. And so you get a new composition based on mixing of materials that melted. And so it is recognised that these changes occur. So that's why we get rocks and crystals that are supposedly younger than the age of the Earth, because the Earth has been through cycles of melting of rocks and redistribution of materials. And from a biblical perspective, we would expect that, because the Bible teaches not only did God create the earth on day one, but on day 3 of the creation week, he made the dry land. So that required a distribution of materials. Why? Because on day 1, the earth was only covered in water. And so to make land requires you move materials around, say to raise a surface of rocks to create a land surface. So that involves earth movements and things that follow from that. And as the material comes up, rock comes up, it erodes. Water going off it will erode, create sedimentary rock. We see those things in the geologic record. And then, of course, at the time of the flood, we're told that the fountains of the Great Deep broke open. That involved molten material as well as water. So you've got rocks melting, things moving around, mountains being formed, and all those things that is going to produce the changes in the distributions of these elements within the earth and in with rocks that we do see in the geologic record. So the age of the earth is not based on actual observations in the sense that we can actually categorically date something with a method that's proven. There's so many assumptions that go behind it. And many people say to me, but the world looks old. No, it's only we put an age on it based on looking at present day processes and making assumptions that those processes have always been in operation at the rates that we observe today. In fact, that goes back to one of your countrymen, James Hutton, who in the late 1700s proposed this idea that things were slow and gradual and went through cycles, and then it was added to and really promoted by an English lawyer who actually trained in Edinburgh as a lawyer, Charles Lyell, and that was the birth of the Geological Society in London in 1806. And he proposed this idea that geological processes are slow and gradual over millions of years, which was a deliberate rejection of the biblical record. And why we take the biblical record seriously is because as Christians, we accept that God was there and he has communicated to us what happened. And we can take it as a reliable eyewitness account. Why is it reliable? Well, our whole Christian faith depends on it being reliable, because if God can't tell us the truth, then nothing is true. How do we determine truth? Well, we get a relativistic determination of truth, which is what we see in our society today as people have more and more rejected God's word. But we regard it as a reliable account. Why would God tell us something that wasn't true? Jesus came to represent God as God himself, the creator, and he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He's not the truth, and he's not the way, and he's not the life. And so if Genesis is a reliable historical account and it's written as historic narrative, then we can take the details. The Bible isn't a geology textbook or a science textbook, thankfully, because science textbooks change. The Bible doesn't change. It gives us sufficient information to tell us that God made the earth and that the earth is only as old as the genealogies that we're given there. The genealogies are there to give us Jesus's family history so that we can see that he is truly man. He has a human ancestor, Adam, and that's why the Apostle Paul talks about Jesus as being the second or the last Adam, because he was related to the... And so we can date the earth from those historical records because the people were there, God was there, and the geologists are only making assumptions when they come to date the Earth's rocks.